Would you like to get updated with the latest episode of AnimeKouhai Tensura spoiler series? It's episode number 291, volume 13, chapter 3, part 5, entitled, Kalgorio looks forward to the greatest military achievement of his career. Support the channel and you will have access to 3 episodes per week. Check out her Patreon page if you get a chance.
He was incessantly brooding, even while scorning his colleague. How can I reap the greatest benefit? Lost in thought, Kalgorio compiled the contents of his proposal to the emperor. Kalgorio's hand would awaken the empire once more. The imperial conference was about to start. This time, the situation was unusual, given that the military officers present were rather tense, to say nothing of the civil servants. Perhaps sensing this atmosphere, people unrelated to the meeting didn't dare approach the conference hall. This meeting was on a different level. Everyone sensed it. The attendees lowered their heads as the entrance of the emperor was announced. The silhouette of a person could be made out behind a bamboo blind. That person was the unifying emperor, Rudra Nam ul Nazca. He stood at the pinnacle of the Nazca Namrium Ulmeria United Eastern Empire, the strongest military power in the world. His figure was hidden on the other side of the bamboo blind, as were his true intentions, which were never revealed to anyone. A supreme existence, which none except close associates had ever seen, intimidated the people in the conference with his mere presence emanating from behind the blind. Peerless and absolute, only a tiny handful of people could express their opinion to the emperor. There were nearly 200 people assembled in the conference room. The 3 commanders, the commanders of each of the military corps, and their adjutants, neatly lined up, were the elites of the imperial guardians. And lastly, the cabinet ministers, who administered the government of the country, as well as the great house of peers, which was the Eastern Empire's backbone. Eminent figures gathered and lowered their heads. Only the rustle of clothes echoed through the quiet hall, until even that sound disappeared. On cue, the Prime Minister motioned to the ceremonial officer.
His Imperial Majesty the Emperor has arrived!
In response, everyone greeted him in unison. It was their chorus of shouts that broke through the silence. Thus began the Imperial Conference, which would go down in history as weighing the benefits of their great expedition. The Imperial Conference opened solemnly. Opinions were split on the great expedition. Regarding the war, the first faction wished for it to be fast and decisive, while the other advocated for a more cautious approach. First of all, under what pretext would we start this war? What a stupid question. We will invade because it is what the emperor wishes, simple as that. Is that possible? Those were the dividing lines this conference was stirring over, between those who advocated caution and those who insisted frontal invasion, and the civil servants who were adamant about first launching diplomatic negotiations that included recommendations of surrender and the pressure of threats. If the emperor willed the coming of war, there would be no room for dispute. However, an imperial order had not yet been given, and so the assembly proceeded according to each person's intentions. Starting the war was just a matter of time, so the problem wasn't when, it was how. The demon lords who ruled distant lands were also a hindrance, but as long as their territory wasn't violated, they wouldn't take action. The hurdle to overcome was Veldora, the storm dragon. Therefore, the focus of discussion ended up on the Great Jura Forest. One person voiced opposition to the war.
With all due respect, Your Majesty, I am against this.
It was the Archmage of the Empire, Master Gadra. He had openly and fearlessly offered his opinion to the Emperor.
What a cowardly thing to say. You're still going on about that, Gadra Dono?
Laughed one of the 3 commanders, the commander of the armored corps, Kalgorio. This happened every time. The 2 represented the cautious faction and the belligerent faction.
The West would easily crumble if we struck them. However, the evil dragon Veldora dwells within the Great Jura Forest. It was only 2 years ago that its revival was made certain, so of course we must be cautious.
One of the sympathetic voices agreed. It was also joined by scoffs calling Gadra soft. In the 300 years that had passed since the Veldora disaster, the memory of its terror had faded. Now, the belligerent opinions were becoming the majority, squeezing Gadra's side between a rock and a hard place. Taking up on this, Kalgorio spoke feverishly.
Master, there's something to be learned from your cautious attitude. Nonetheless, as I have assured you many times, the countermeasures against Veldora are flawless. With our new weapons, we can subdue that evil dragon.
You're ridiculous. Stop living in an illusion, Kalgorio Dono. As long as the possibility of it failing cannot be denied, we must, naturally, exercise caution. Not to mention, a new demon lord has risen to power in that forest. Although it is known that the demon lords do not cooperate with one another, it is still unwise to deliberately antagonize one. That evil dragon was revived and seems to have joined hands with the newcomer, Demon Lord Rimuru. Dealing with a demon lord through mutual inviolability is the tried and true approach.
One possible route would lead through the Valley of Death, which was connected to the former territory of Claimon, as it allowed for large armies to pass through. They did not, however, wish to venture into Demon Lord Milam's domain, which lay beyond it, thus discarding that option. Marching across fertile ground would be significantly faster, but that said, incurring the wrath of Demon Lord Milam was too great of a price to pay. Likewise, passing through the Great Jura Forest would allow them to reach the west. But now Veldora, the storm dragon, had returned and was allied with Demon Lord Rimuru.
There is no reason to make more enemies.
Gadra insisted, receiving nods from several civil servants. On the other side, Calgurio gave a scornful laugh and posed the question.
Well then, Gadra Dono, are you saying that we should give up on pursuing the Empire's dearest wish?
Taking the route through the Great Jura Forest off the table would cripple their options in terms of dispatching a large army towards the west. Calgurio's concern was picked up by the army circle on those grounds.
Calgurio Dono is right. Master, even demon lords pose no threat in the face of the great imperial army.
You're being insolent before His Imperial Majesty. Gadra Dono, do you intend to defy the Emperor's will?
Nay.
Gadra shouted and refuted the objection.
Come to think of it, rather than fighting a demon lord, it would be wiser to get the cooperation of the Dwarf King. There won't be any casualties, and it will be easier to conquer the west.
However, there was someone who laughed at Gadra's assertion.
You are being ridiculous, Gadra Dono. The Dwarf King is a master swordsman and a man of great honor. His predecessors were champions as well, and he is exceptionally skilled. His companions are also famous champions. They would be tougher opponents than the newcomer Demon Lord. As much as I'd like to test their abilities in a match, that's not our main concern. What I'm saying is that instead of fighting against champions, the optics of subjugating a demon lord are far preferable in the public eye.
This interjection came from none other than one of the three commanders. He was the commander of the Magic Beast Corps, Beast King Gladium. As he merely rose from his seat, the air was heavy with an overwhelming sense of intimidation. Rightly so, for the dignity of a king. Gladium also ruled over the magical beasts by force. He was one of the best warriors in the Empire and a highly skilled military commander, holding the rank of general. It was said that he was the second strongest man in the Empire. Gladium was not, in fact, a single digit but a double digit, but his strength led him to become a corps commander early in his career. Owing to his privilege of being freed from participating in the ranked duels, he took pride in claiming to be the strongest. That was why Gladium didn't have any conflicting emotions towards the marshal, who was considered to be stronger than him. It was rumored that he descended from the Beastman clan, but the authenticity of that rumor was uncertain. Gadra didn't get along with him as he was the type of person who acted not on logic but on instinct.
Ah, Gladium Dono, that comparison is wrong.
Gadra replied.
What I'm saying is that we should make King Gazel our ally.
You fool!
Gladium shot back.
If you mean to absorb the Dwarven Kingdom at the same time, I understand what you are saying. After all, crushing every fool in defiance of imperial rule would be enough. However, what is your plan? You think of your nonsense as a reason to hold back our forces that are fully ready to march.
What kind of drivel is that? You already know that the Dwarven Kingdom is a natural fortress, right? Taking it by force would be...
Silence!
Beast King Gladium roared.
Complaining in the presence of His Imperial Majesty, no wonder why you were dismissed from being a corps commander.
That was, indeed, the truth. Until about 30 years ago, the Magic Corps commanded by Gadra were part of the Empire's three great armies. Now, however, the best and brightest from the Corps had been transferred to the Technology Department and elsewhere. That was because the so-called magic relied on talent. To begin with, you could not control magic without possessing magical power. No amount of effort could replace it, thereby softly limiting their numbers. Although it was useful in combat, weapons had been developed to replace magic. One was a small magic weapon, the spell gun. Using magic stones as the energy source, the magic circle engraved into the gun barrel would activate. It was a weapon by which anyone could use magic. While it fell short in being limited to only a single kind of magic, its effectiveness spoke for itself. For close combat, there was the Imperial Magic Saber. It worked on the same principle as the spell gun and was one of the small magic weapons with weapon-strengthening magic applied. It was because of this item that the technical team realized the purpose of the slotted weapons from the labyrinth. They all reached the same conclusion, in other words, they had to be right. Now that magic could be manipulated in spite of the absence of talent, the Magic Corps had become obsolete. It was a sorrowful event for Gadra as it marked the end of the magic era.
Master,
Another person sneered at Gadra.
you've grown old. Your knowledge of magic is a treasure to the Empire. While I owe you my gratitude for your help in developing new kinds of magic weapons for my armored core, as Gladium said, your remark just now was lamentable. It feels like you are scared.
Calgurio smirked contemptuously. Stifled laughs escaping from the House of Peers and the army circle could be heard.
Do all of you even understand? That evil dragon ruling over the storm is the most powerful species in this world.
It is you who does not understand, old master. The Imperial Army of today is different from before. We have learned the knowledge of many other worlders and gained a technological system, science, different from our own. Thanks to this new technology, the Empire's military strength has increased tenfold over the previous generation. An old-fashioned mage like yourself can't keep up in modern warfare. A quiet retirement in the grace of His Imperial Majesty is all that you should hope for now.
How dare you?
Gadra cried out with indignation, but in reality, he was just faking it. To begin with, Gadra had already surrendered to Demon Lord Rimuru. He tried his best to advocate against the path of war. That said, the ultimate outcome did not concern him. These guys are really pathetic. Science indeed produced wonderful knowledge, but even the Sorcerer's Dynasty Sarian had their own secret knowledge, magic science. On top of that, His Majesty Rimuru also used to be an otherworlder. I don't know how far this military strength, which guarantees the supremacy of the Empire, could go. Now that he knew about Tempest, about Rimuru, Gadra doubted the victory of the Empire. It wasn't that he wished misfortune to befall his former associates, and on top of that, he also felt indebted towards His Imperial Majesty. So, he was trying his best to deter them from war, but if he failed, well, he would cross that bridge when he got there. From what he could tell, Yuki seemed to be gearing up towards staging a coup d'état and planned to capture the Emperor, assassinate him, even. Considering his goal was to rule the world, a powerful leader was nothing but a hindrance. In the old days, Gadra would have left him to his own devices. But now that the very reason for war had disappeared, Gadra could no longer tolerate Yuki's ways, which threatened to plunge the world into chaos. Well, I don't know what will happen after this, but any further advice would be meaningless. In that case, the next step is to carry out His Majesty Rimuru's order, drawing the attention of the Imperial Army to the dungeon. Gadra quietly steeled his resolve. Then he turned his eyes to Yuki, who still remained silent. Calgurio took Gadra's silence as an admission of defeat. Gadra's magic corps had been disbanded, followed by internal restructuring of the military.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Sanketh Chelu, Minotaur, Chadvota, Kieron, Ray Perez, Chris Guzman, Havox, Speed Saber, James Waters, Yon Junam, Donald Williams, Moab A, Day of Light, Diasili, John M, John Charles, Godman Gaming, Akon Engok, Markithian Tidwell, Trevor Federkins, Andre L. Hamilton, Adrian, Sean Sinclair, Kumo, Tibush, Chang, John L, Fraser Guzman, James, Tojam, Edgar Fuentes, JV, Dirty Old Hobo, Gonsi Direco, Thomas, J, Christ, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Vethelny, Nathan Paulin, Lunel Scarlett, Khalid, Ryan, John Wong, Mika Pekarinen, Christian Deshazer, Cal Robs, Professor DJ, Divine C. Harris, KSage 1999, Rock Welch, Isaiah Alston, Matthew Mowers, Bass Pulin, Juice, Panda Cats, Aaron Alarcon, DeAndre Nance, Bloy, Van Chana, Oz Hunter, Monty Boy 98, D-Man, Wise Viking, Otaku Hermit, Christian Roberts, Ruben, Ken, Maria Vasquez Rodriguez, Luis Caro, Soma Kazuya, Yuki Iki, Peter Ambak Helsem, PK Fan, Jovan Ray Jadrak, Matt Alphonse Magpantay, Ryan Abadilla, James Bond, Zillion Diz, Pedro Robles, AJ De La Cruz, Ono Morman. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.